For over a century, gasoline outboards ruled the water, and every marine dealer's profits depended on messy repairs and routine breakdowns. But at last year's Norwalk boat show, a surge of high-powered electric motors shattered that old order, leaving industry insiders stunned. Could this be the moment traditional boating ends? The real question is, who stands to lose everything if this change takes over? Every outboard motor on the water today traces its roots to a single idea: make boating accessible and make sure it keeps boatyards and dealers busy for years to come. For more than a century, internal combustion engines formed the backbone of that promise. Their design, complex, mechanical, and always in need of attention, built an entire culture around tune-ups, oil changes, and winter storage. For most marine dealers, the real money never came from selling a shiny new boat. It came from what happened after the sale. Each season, owners returned for routine maintenance. Spark plugs, carburetors, belts, and filters all needed regular replacement. In New England, winterization became a ritual: draining fluids, fogging cylinders, shrink-wrapping hulls against the cold. Every step meant a billable hour, a part to order, another line on the invoice. Financial records across the industry reveal a telling pattern. While new boat sales bring in volume, margins hover between 8 and 12%. Service and parts, by contrast, generate margins of 35 to 50%. In a typical dealership, half the gross profit comes from labor in the shop or parts at the counter. Winterization and off-season storage add another 10 to 15%, especially in regions like Connecticut, where cold weather keeps boats out of the water for months. A single engine breakdown can mean hundreds or even thousands of dollars in diagnostic fees, repairs, and replacement parts. Multiply that by every boat in the marina, and the numbers become the foundation of the business. This service-driven model shaped more than just profit sheets. It dictated hiring, with rows of certified mechanics in every shop, and it influenced how dealers built relationships with customers. The expectation was clear: buying a boat meant entering a long-term partnership, with regular visits to the shop not just likely, but necessary. For decades, this cycle went unquestioned, tying the fortunes of local economies and skilled trades to the fate of the combustion engine. Any threat to this system is not just a technical matter, it is an economic earthquake waiting to happen. By the early 2000s, electric outboards were already making quiet appearances on the water, but almost nobody noticed. Their role was small, almost invisible, tucked onto the backs of sailboat tenders, rented by eco-tour operators, or used by a handful of lake guides who needed to slip through protected zones without leaving a trace. The promise sounded appealing: no gas fumes, no oil slicks, and a whisper-quiet ride. But reality rarely matched the sales pitch. Most early electric outboards topped out at just a few horsepower. Range was measured in miles, sometimes only 2 or 3, before the battery needed hours of recharging. For anyone used to the freedom of a gas tank, the limitations felt stifling. Power was another problem. These motors struggled against currents or wind, and forget about pulling a water skier or making a fast run across the bay. Outings became a careful calculation. How far could you go before the battery meter dipped into the red? For most boaters, the answer was not far enough. Dealers stocked a handful of units for niche customers, but few saw any reason to push them. Even in places like Connecticut, where lake restrictions sometimes banned gas engines, electric outboards remained a specialty item, relegated to slow-moving pontoons, rental fleets, or guided birdwatching tours. Adoption stalled. The technology was limited by the batteries of its era: heavy, slow to charge, and quick to drain. Manufacturers like Torqeedo and Minn Kota kept refining their designs, but mainstream buyers stayed away. A decade into the new century, electric outboards were still seen as a novelty, not a threat. For traditional dealers and mechanics, the old service model remained safe. The real challenge, building an electric outboard that could rival the freedom, range, and power of gas, still seemed out of reach. That would soon change, but for now, the future was stuck in neutral. Engine Alley stretched along the heart of Norwalk Cove Marina, drawing a steady current of visitors from the moment the gates opened. The usual thrum of outboard chatter faded into a low hush as crowds pressed closer to the clear demo tanks. In the center, a row of electric outboards, sleek, compact, and almost clinical in their silence, waited for their turn to prove themselves. Flux Marine's display stood out, the Connecticut startup's branding bold against a backdrop of legacy names like Mercury and Yamaha. Attendees circled the tanks, phones in hand, waiting for the next demonstration. When the throttle advanced on an electric outboard, the only sound was the swirl of water. No exhaust, no vibration, just the faint slap of a wake against plexiglass. Children leaned in, wide-eyed, while seasoned boaters traded glances that mixed curiosity with disbelief. A noise meter on the dock flashed numbers barely above the ambient sound of conversation, 50 to 60 decibels, while just steps away, a gas outboard roared to life, its growl cutting through the marina and sending a few heads shaking. The contrast was impossible to ignore. Demo slots for electric test rides filled up faster than any gas-powered offering. Show organizers confirmed that more than a third of all demo sign-ups went to electric boats, a first in the event's history. The crowd's attention lingered at each silent launch, with many staying to pepper manufacturer reps with questions about torque, range, and charging. Social media posts spiked as a viral clip of a Flux Marine outboard gliding away from the dock racked up thousands of views before the weekend was over. For many, this was the first time seeing an outboard run without smoke or noise. The atmosphere in Engine Alley was charged, part spectacle, part reckoning, as the promise of effortless, maintenance-free boating played out in real time. The old rituals of oil changes and tune-ups suddenly felt distant, replaced by a new kind of anticipation. The demand for answers was palpable. People wanted to know, how does it work, and what comes next? A single clip, just 15 seconds long, set the internet alight. A Flux Marine electric outboard glided away from the dock, the only sound a ripple of water and the faint click of a phone camera. Within hours of the Norwalk Boat Show, that video was everywhere, shared on TikTok, Instagram, and boating forums from Maine to Miami. By the end of the week, the silent takeoff had racked up more than 45,000 views on TikTok alone, with hundreds of comments debating whether this was the beginning of the end for gas engines on the Sound. One caption asked, "Is this the future of boating?" While another simply read, "No smoke, no noise, no going back." The ripple effect was immediate. Show organizers reported a surge in demo requests, with test ride slots for electric boats filling up days in advance. Social media feeds lit up with side-by-side comparisons, decibel meters showing 50 decibels for electric and 90 decibels for gas, hands held out over clean water, no rainbow sheen in sight. The official Norwalk Boat Show Instagram saw engagement spike by more than 250% on posts featuring electric outboards, dwarfing the reach of gas engine content from previous years. Boating bloggers and local news outlets picked up the story, amplifying the message far beyond the marina gates. Dealers fielded calls from buyers who had never set foot at the show but wanted to know if they could reserve one of these new motors before the next season. This viral wave did not just boost curiosity, it gave the electric outboard a stamp of public validation. For the first time, the conversation shifted from the docks and demo tanks to living rooms, group chats, and waterfront bars. Boating, once defined by the growl of an outboard and the smell of two-stroke exhaust, was suddenly being reimagined in real time, one silent clip at a time. The question on everyone's mind was no longer if electric outboards would catch on, but how soon they would become the new normal. Throttle forward, and the response is immediate. Electric outboards deliver full torque the instant the lever moves. No waiting for an engine to wind up. No lag between intention and motion. On the dock at Norwalk, the difference was impossible to miss. A gas outboard stuttered and rumbled before building speed, while the electric counterpart surged ahead with a quiet authority, wake rolling out in a clean line behind it. Boaters who took the controls described it as effortless, like flipping a switch and feeling the boat leap to attention. For anyone used to coaxing a gas engine through its paces, the sensation was jarring but addictive. Noise meters did not lie. While a traditional outboard pushed past 85 decibels at full throttle, louder than city traffic, electric models hovered around 50 to 60 decibels, quieter than a normal conversation. The effect carried across the marina, voices carried, birds settled on pilings, and the only sound was water splitting beneath the hull. Families on test rides found themselves talking instead of shouting, able to hear music, laughter, or the slap of waves without a mechanical drone in the background. An engineer from Flux Marine explained it best. With electric, you get maximum torque from 0 RPM. That means instant acceleration, total control, and almost no vibration. In tight quarters or crowded docks, that control is not just a luxury, it is a safety feature. The leap from the old world to the new is not just about numbers on a spec sheet. It is a physical experience, one that redefines what power and silence mean on the water. Range and efficiency used to be the wall that electric outboards could not climb. Today the numbers are different, and so is the conversation. The Mercury Avatar 7.5e, one of the most watched launches at Norwalk, offers a real-world range from 5 to 34 miles on a single charge. That is not just marketing. At low throttle, a day of quiet cruising is possible. Push the throttle to full, and you will cover about 5 miles before you need to recharge, a figure that matches the needs of most day trippers, lake boaters, and harbor commuters. Efficiency is where electric motors quietly outclass their gas rivals. According to Dr. Christoph Ballen, a leading engineer in marine electrification, traditional outboards convert just 5 to 15% of fuel energy into forward motion. Electric motors, by contrast, operate at 44 to 56% efficiency. That means less energy wasted as heat, noise, or vibration, and more of every watt actually moving the boat. Battery modularity is now a selling point, not a compromise. Most new electric outboards use swappable lithium packs. Pop one out, drop in a fresh one, and keep going. For boaters with longer trips in mind, carrying a spare battery is as simple as packing an extra fuel tank used to be. Cruise displays show real-time range estimates, letting owners plan their outings with precision. The question is no longer whether electric outboards can keep up, but how quickly they will redefine what boaters expect from a day on the water. Inside the service bay of a Connecticut dealership, the numbers on the whiteboard have started to look like a warning. For years, the formula was simple: sell a boat, and the real profits would follow in the form of oil changes, tune-ups, and winter storage. But with each electric outboard that leaves the lot, that formula unravels. Service managers now face a stark calculation. Every electric motor sold means one less customer returning for a spring tune-up, one less invoice for spark plugs and carburetor kits, and one more idle mechanic on the payroll. Margins tell the story in hard numbers. New boat sales bring in just 8 to 12% profit, sometimes a bit more for the right model. But service work, oil changes, repairs, winterization delivers margins of 35 to 50%. In a typical year, nearly half of a dealership's gross profit comes from the shop, not the showroom. Parts and accessories add another 20 to 30%. Electric outboards with no oil, no filters, and almost nothing to replace cut straight into this core. Internal projections circulated among New England dealers warn of a 40% loss in service income if electric motors capture just a quarter of the local market. The anxiety is personal. A dealer at Norwalk admits that for the first time they saw families skip the Mercury lane and go straight to electric. It is surreal but real. We have to adapt or go under. Retraining staff is expensive. High-voltage certification courses run $4,000 to $7,000 per technician, and fewer hands are needed. Some shops are already shifting mechanics to electronics and battery installs, but the transition is not smooth. The old security of seasonal work is gone, replaced by a scramble for new profit centers. For every boat that leaves the dock whisper quiet, a dealer's business model grows a little more uncertain. The promise of a cleaner, quieter future on the water comes with questions few dealers are ready to answer. Every electric outboard depends on batteries, most built around lithium, mined from salt flats in South America or hard rock deposits in Australia and China. In the rush to electrify, the industry rarely talks about what it takes to pull these metals from the earth. Brine extraction in Chile and Argentina drains millions of liters of water from fragile desert ecosystems, threatening the communities that rely on them. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, cobalt mining, still used in some marine batteries, has drawn scrutiny for hazardous conditions and child labor. Even as brands like Torqeedo and e-propulsion shift to lithium iron phosphate cells, full traceability remains elusive. The Global Battery Alliance estimates up to 30% of the world's lithium supply comes from regions with regulatory gaps or high environmental risk. Manufacturers highlight zero emissions and silent running, but the supply chain behind each battery reaches far beyond the marina. Environmentalists warn that unless buyers and builders demand better sourcing and recycling, the green reputation of electric boating hangs in the balance. Recycling initiatives and new chemistries offer hope, but as of now, detailed transparency is rare. Meanwhile, the horsepower race is heating up. Vision Marine Technologies is pushing electric outboards past 180 horsepower, targeting the same high-performance market that once belonged only to gas. Regulators are watching closely, tightening emissions rules and eyeing the supply chain. The stakes are global, stretching from Connecticut showrooms to the salt flats of the Andes. The next leap in boating power may depend as much on ethics and raw material as on torque and range. Today, electric outboards disrupt not just technology, but the economics of every marina and dealer in America. As lithium-ion demand surges, new questions about ethics and supply chains surface alongside cleaner water. The future of boating isn't just about silent motors. It is about who controls the current. Change is already here. Who adapts and who gets left behind will define the next century on the water. What do you think? Revolution or risk?